Welcome everyone to another Birdies conversation. Angel City has partnered with Birdies on this talk series to discuss important topics to help women and all people rise both personally and professionally. I am Lisa Milner Goldberg. I am the VP of Public Relations for Angel City Football Club and mom to Zoe, age 4, and Ruby, who turned 1 this week. She is actually the first Angel City baby, so if that gives you any idea, the run up to this team, we now have a full-fledged 1-year-old baby in the Angel City family. This conversation is super timely because we are rounding out Women's History Month, and we all felt it would be really important to celebrate and discuss the accomplishments and also the challenges of being a mom, and particularly a working mom. And I say that because every mom's a working mom, whether you have set foot in an office or on the pitch, or you are with your babies all day, every day, you are a working mom. And, in terms of why this really hits home, Angel City is founded by and essentially totally run by moms. There are over 10 moms in the front office at Angel City, which is remarkable. And moreover, we're also founded by moms. And so one of those owners is here today, Miss Lorrie Fair Allen, who is a former U.S. Women's National Team player, an Angel City founding investor, and mom to Cooper and Jordan. And so I'm going to have Lorrie give an opening statement, and I'm going to ask you a quick question, and we'll turn it over to Sarah. Lorrie, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Just to kick it off, you weren't a mom when you were on the national team. You had kids after your playing career, but there were moms on the team when you were on the team. Can you just talk a little bit about what that was like being on the other side before having kids yourself?
Oh, certainly. I think so. My teammates, Joy Fawcett, who was the first mom of the U.S. Women's National Team, and Carla Overbeck was the second mom on the national team. Having kids around the team was really, I was a lot younger. I was the youngest on that team at that time, but having the kids around was definitely one of those, like, it's kind of like a gut check moment, when you have a tough day and then you come back into the training ground or in the locker room or whatever, and then you see these kids and they're playing and you're like, okay, maybe my day wasn't that bad. Like, these kids just kind of brighten up your day. And you got kind of a small glimpse of their joy. And you didn't really have a lot of, unless we were traveling, you didn't really have a ton of like, oh my gosh, this is what it's like. But I remember the first time when the kids came with us someplace and it was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you're doing all of this at the same time. And yes, everybody's there to help, but really, it definitely takes a village. At the same time, a lot of that burden was on them to raise kids, to be, the captain of the U.S. national team, to take us to a world championship, to an Olympics, and you don't really ever get the full breadth of it until you're a mom yourself, and then you can look back, like I can look back on the national team and be like, I don't know if there's actually any possible way I could have done that.
It is truly remarkable. And so, thank you for sharing that. And that leads us right into our other panelist here today, Sarah Gorden, who was the 2021 Defender of the Year runner-up, current Angel City Defender, and mom to Caden. Thanks for being here, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm excited about this conversation.
So you came into this league as a mom, right, Sarah?
Yes, I did.
Which is an unbelievable achievement, to come into a professional sports league as a mother. Can you just talk about that a little bit, and also, how your team has embraced Caden from day?
Yeah, I had my son Caden when I was in college, right before my junior year of college. I found out I was pregnant, so I had to sit out that season. And I think, that's something that's not really common in women's soccer. Like, there's not a lot of athletes that are doing that in college. And so But I will say that, it definitely just like helped me completely realign my focus, my life, what I wanted to do getting pregnant at 20. It really did. Even though it felt like it was like the most disastrous thing at the time, but it ended up being, the most beautiful and rewarding, of course. But yeah, since I've been a pro, coming from Chicago to Angel City, every team I've been on has really embraced my son Caden, and from college too, every single team. And it's really special to kind of see the bonds that he makes with the different players throughout these different teams. They really are his aunties, and he loves them. And I will also say that he's 8 years old now. He just chose number 23, not because he likes Michael Jordan or anyone else, because he wants to be like press. He loves press. So I just think, it's amazing to see how much he loves the game, because he's been around the game and he's been around these strong, fierce women, and they've just embraced him with so much love, and it's really special.
Oh, love that. Okay, so we're gonna start with really just talking about your experiences as athlete moms. That's not something everybody watching can relate to, but I think it is, being a mom, you are interested in other people's experiences, whether it's from pregnancy to giving birth to raising your kids. Like all of those things are so unique and different for every single person. I always say there's like the one experience that is completely different for every single person is like being pregnant, having a baby, raising a baby. Like there is no, the common thread is being a mom, but there's just so many different things that people experience along that journey. So, Lorrie, if you could just kind of talk about, being an athlete and then being pregnant and having a child, like, was that just totally shocking? And like, what was that like to have that kind of shift, cosmic shift, in a way that other people don't necessarily experience?
Well, I feel like regardless, I mean, I know the athlete perspective is unique in that you've basically dedicated your entire life to being, fit and being the best soccer player you could be, or athlete in whatever your sport. And so pregnancy seems like it's almost like a, all right, here's a little bump in the road, but I can do this while I'm pregnant. And I remember I wasn't playing soccer anymore at the time, but I played beach volleyball all the time, and I was playing like every single weekend at the beach. And I remember my doctor, I think she was like, you know what, Lorrie, just don't dive on your stomach. Like, don't dive forward. And I was like, oh, but I can dive to the side, right? And she was like, technically, yes. And so literally I would like go out there because I didn't want to be stagnant. I didn't want to be like, being active is a part of my soul. And so like I was doing all sorts of stuff up until, fortunately, I was able to. There's a lot of people I know that weren't, but I was able to do things actively and physically all the way through my first pregnancy. The second one was a little bit harder, but I just remember that. I think that shift is more about having so much activity in your life and then being like, I can't do that anymore. But how do I find ways around it? For the national team, I mean, looking at Joy and her trajectory is like she was literally timing kids between our Olympics and our World Cups, and she had all of her kids timed like that, and her recovery was just extraordinary. And I didn't understand that until after recovering from my first pregnancy, thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't know how she ran a Cooper test like 2 or 3 weeks after having her first daughter. And she joined the national team and ran fitness, and back then it was like, you fly in, you run fitness. There were no sort of rest days. It was like the moment you get off the plane, it was a fitness day. So to take that into consideration is like, I knew that the women on the team that were, the pioneers of the women's game that came before me, they weren't just warriors for social justice. They weren't just warriors on the field. They were just, I think to steal Sarah's words, they're fierce. And they were just like, it was just like, wow, like these kids are growing up with so many strong women figures around them that there's no way they can't benefit from this. And it's true, like so many people would like pick them up and talk to them. And you could see even their development with so many people talking to them and spending time with them. They soaked up everything. And that was really cool to see. So for certain, I've sort of taken that as a lesson of like your village is really important. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Sarah, you know, you being pregnant at 20, I think for anybody is a shock and probably an oh my God, what's next? But for somebody who's playing a sport in college and like had aspirations to be a professional athlete, what did that look like, and how did, in that moment or leading up to or having a baby at such a young age, like how was that for you?
It was honestly, I'm just gonna say it. I know people are like, pregnancy is so beautiful. It was a terribly depressing experience for me. Like, I felt isolated. I felt unsupported by family, by team, by, so many, pretty much everyone. I had a few friends that were very supportive. So it's like it makes me sad to think about, especially now because I'm very much a like energy person, and I'm like, oh no, like how did that affect Caden? How did that affect him for me to be so sad and like honestly depressed at times throughout the pregnancy? So don't recommend don't recommend going that route. But I feel like I'm not sure. It's hard to have a kid when you're still a kid and you're still learning about yourself and you're still growing. And I always say like Caden's probably gonna go to therapy when he's a little bit older and like try to like digest some of the things that we've been through together. But I feel like I don't know, it looking back, it's kind of amazing that he just got to be around for all of that. It's a different journey, but it's awesome that he got to experience that. And kind of like you were saying, Lori, like being around so many different teams and always like being in the mix like that. I just feel like that's a special childhood in a lot of ways. So at the time it was hard, but looking back, like I wouldn't change it for anything.
It's great. It's interesting because we're talking about this unique experience, but I think a lot of moms, that are in maybe less traditional settings, maybe not sports or whatever, do lean on the people around them. And so I'm going to transition a little bit outside of what we had talked about before we started this. But can you just talk a little bit more about that village, just what that means, and how you have, specifically for you, Sarah, like what you've seen, how people have embraced Caden, and also like throughout your career, how you have particularly had to lean on people, and what kind of advice you would have for other people who may not necessarily feel as comfortable asking for help, or feel like they might be burdening somebody else to ask for them to watch their kid or take their kid to school or any of those kinds of.
As far as like it takes a village, it absolutely does. I think, okay, first of all, parenting teaches you so much about yourself. It's like you're trying to teach this human, but you're actually like, I feel like I've learned so much about myself. Everything that I've had to work on has been parenting has been a magnifying glass for things that I need to work on with myself. So it's like it's really been the greatest lesson for me. Um, and it going into like it takes a village. I would say that soccer, we, as pros, we take it so seriously. I am so hard on myself. I am so critical of myself. And I know, you know, as pro athletes, a lot of us are like this. Um, and it's refreshing to be able, to have Caden there to lighten the mood. Kids don't care, Caden is a ball of love. He doesn't care if you had a bad game. He's gonna give you the biggest hug in the world. And I think throughout the time my teammates have felt that and been grateful for a kid to come in and lighten the energy, and to just be present because we get so wrapped up in everything else. So it takes a village to help with him, and he brings so much to everyone. Kids bring so much to everyone, to lighten the mood and just make things softer and better.
Sarah, you're right on. This magnifying glass is real. And it's everything, like all of your own stuff, all of your own, whether it's insecurities or just, a lack of being able to cope with certain emotions because we weren't taught that as kids, or, how our parents raised us. Sorry, but it's true. It's like all of that is we're projecting onto our kids. And we bring that to the table. And just like we do in our athletic careers and our professional careers, we work on our skills, but no one teaches you how to be a parent. Like, we don't take enough time to learn how to be a parent. And I don't think everybody should be parents. You know what I mean? Like, nobody gives you a course on how to be a parent. And most everybody just kind of jumps into it and says, well, I'm going to do the best I can. But I'm sorry to say that's not good enough. Like, doing the best you can isn't good enough when you're like trying to raise strong human beings. And like, I just feel like we're not putting enough time and effort into our skills as parents. And there also are not a ton of resources out there as well. Although I have to say that there's a lot more now that like TikTok is out there, and like there's some really awesome people that I'm not really a social media person, but I'm like, this woman knows what she's talking about. I love her. And so like we really have to better ourselves at parenting just like we do the other parts of our lives. In terms of advice, I would say like jump in and offer, like whenever you see somebody struggle, like even on the airplane, like I've helped people, like this woman. Oh my gosh, I just recently went to South Africa, and this woman was running through Newark Airport, and she had no, it was in Johannesburg. She was running to her gate because she thought she was going to miss her plane, and she had, it looked to be like a 4-year old, an 8-year old or a 9-year old, and like a 1-year old. And so she was carrying one, the other two, like they were all carrying stuff. There was things dropping everywhere. And as soon as she went through the security checkpoint, I like picked up one of her kids. I was like, all right, where are you going? Let's figure out. And she was running, and I looked at the board and I was like, we're going to go together. Take a deep breath. You're going to be fine. They're boarding now, but you don't need to rush. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, I'm positive. Let's walk this together. And so like we literally walked up to the gate together. And I thought to myself, my gosh, if I was on the plane with her, I would literally like sit next to her and like just, if baby was crying, if she needed to sleep, like whatever it was. And so I feel like in my younger days, I may not have jumped in too much for fear of like not knowing what to do, but moms know what to do. So if you just put yourself out there and truly offer for the sake of like, concern for that person, because it's hard, just offer yourself up there and they'll tell you what to do. I used to call my neighbor when my first was born, that period where you don't know what to do with yourself when you're hungry, you're tired, you don't know which to do first, and you haven't showered in like a week. And I would call her, and she was this older black lady. She came around the corner, she rang my doorbell. She's a grandma, and I handed her my child, and I was like, I'll be right back. And I walked upstairs and I like stood in the shower for a little bit and cried a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I got out of the shower. I went downstairs and I ate a little bit. And she was like, I know what to do. Call me anytime.
That's interesting because I will say that there is something about, like, somebody asked me what the most surprising thing about being a mom was. And I said, like, motherly instinct. Like, I'm a clumsy person. I drop things. I trip. I fall. I have never once dropped either of my children, knock on wood. But if you know me, the fact that like I knew exactly how to hold that baby when she was born. I knew exactly how to not drop her, how to like do a lot of the things that I didn't anticipate. And I 100% agree that there is no manual. That everyone needs to do better. Everyone needs to do their best. But like there are some weirdly innate things about being a mom that you just don't expect. And that is to me, and it's the same thing, even just seeing somebody run through the airport. Like there's a difference between handing your child over to a mom that you're a stranger, but like you can tell that, like, I'm sure that woman knew that you knew how to hold her child, you know? And I think that that's sort of what this is really about. And, we've all kind of said the word struggle in our answers or in my questions, but we have a wonderful Angel City mom in our front office, and she and I have coined the term the juggle struggle. And being a working mom is often a juggle struggle. And so I wanted to ask you both what that term means to you, and it could be for your playing career, or your off your job, your incredible job that you have, Lorrie, or just being at home. Sarah, can you?
Yeah, the juggle struggle. I love it. Um, I love the term, not the actual juggle struggle. Let me just confirm. I would say something I struggle with the most is this mom guilt. And I was actually just talking to my therapist about this a few days ago. I've had this mom guilt ever since I became a mom, and it's this idea that I'm not a good mom or I'm not doing enough for my child. So I obviously, as a pro athlete, have, I have to go to training. Right now I'm doing physical therapy, etc. And it's like not when I'm at work where I start feeling this mom guilt. It's after, if I take a moment to myself to get, something to eat, or just to, go do some yoga. I have this voice in the back of my mind that's like, you should have picked up Caden, or you should be with him right now, or you should be doing this, or even when I'm with him, you should be spending more time being present. And so that's been the hardest thing for me to navigate. And, you come home from work, or for me, from practice, exhausted, and you don't always have a lot to give. And that's also when the mom guilt comes up of like, you're not good enough, you're not doing enough. And some of it is that same critical voice that we talked about for being an athlete. But I mean, it's hard. And I don't know if it ever goes away. I think, a lot of moms, I mean, I'm sure you guys can relate. But it's a constant juggle struggle.
It's funny because as I reflect on the struggle of the juggle, um, I think back to like my childhood. So I have two half older siblings that are like 12 and 15 years older, and then an older brother, and then a twin sister. And so, like, and my dad passed away when I was 13. So, like, when that happened, my sister and I and my brother were like, all right, well, like we're kind of, my mom was a working mom, and she was like, she literally worked straight, from when out of college, and she worked straight through. She worked for IBM, and so she actually was a higher up position than my dad. And when he was gone, she quickly became a single mom. And so it was like, all right, well, how are we carpooling to soccer practice? What are we doing after school? How are we? And like, we just kind of like we talked about before, there's this village, but you could see this struggle of the juggle because her priority had to be on like making money to make sure that there was food on the table. So it wasn't like she was not coming to soccer games because she didn't want to come. I think that a lot of that had to do with her having, to struggle through the juggle and having to three kids that were heavily involved in sports and other activities. And so that was sort of where I got the first of it. But that it's like I never felt as a kid like we went so far without. Like I never felt, I think there was a lack of, maybe I felt like I didn't have as much presence with my mom there. Um, but as I grow into like now my motherhood, the struggle of the juggle is more about like we know these kids have to have these basic needs met, and me and my partner, you I think you guys saw him run in through one door. He had just gotten back from work, and he zipped through the house a couple times and then skedaddled because he's got to pick the kids up and then take one of them to like skateboarding or something, or like and so it's this like constant like, do you have them, do I have them, who's got dinner, who's got breakfast, and like that struggle. I hear Sarah on the mom guilt because I travel a lot more for my work than my partner does for his, in terms of like going overseas for 2 weeks straight. And I had a lot of guilt about that. And at the same time, like if I can talk to my kids about why the work I do is important and why the work that I do is something that I love, and how it's rooted in things like equality and social justice and like investing in young people, and then making sure that I'm present, which I'm not always, making sure that I'm present when I'm with them. Like these are all things just to improve upon. But the mom guilt and the struggle of the juggle is, I think, across every single parent, and especially even now in COVID when everyone's on lockdown and I'm expected to try to work from home with two kids, like trying to bomb my videos. And now I'm like, I don't even apologize anymore because I'm kind of like, we should all have allow each other some grace for this because this is actually life happening, and we should actually be more welcoming of it rather than saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, get out of here, get out of here. I should be like, Cooper, meet Sarah and Lisa. Sarah, Lisa, meet Cooper and Jordan, and they'll like do their thing, and I'll be like, okay, I love you, like, and just take the pause and just let life happen and be present wherever it is. Yeah.
I will say you're both associated with an organization where we all know each other's kids because Angel City was basically completely built on Zoom. So I know Julie's kids. I know, and I think that is, you brought up basically the reason I really wanted us to have this conversation, which is the societal pressures of being a mom in the last 2 years, being a working mom. I mean, it's been a very scary time to be a parent. It's been a very scary time to be a human being in this world. But I think as a parent, as a mom, just like making the decision, are you sending your kid back to school? Are they going to wear masks? Like, are you working from home with your kid in the house? Like, there's just been so many things that everyone has felt the last 2 years, and I just wanted to get your individual takes on how you felt being a parent in such a crazy time. And Sarah, you go first.
Well, I will say that when the pandemic began, my son was at the end of kindergarten, and it was like an essential time to be in school. You're learning to read and write, you're learning how to socialize with other kids. And when homeschooling happens, I almost quit being a mom. I was like, I cannot teach this kid to read. Like, I've tried absolutely everything. I can't do, like, there were so many times where I was like, I should be grateful for this time that we're stuck in the house together and I'm going insane. So that was the biggest test of my patience, of just like the biggest look in the mirror for me. It's been hard. I'm lucky that there were times where we were off from soccer, so I actually didn't have to, work from home or anything. I actually had time to devote to homeschooling and doing this, and I still couldn't do it. So I know, like, collectively we were all struggling, and of course still are, and still trying to get through it. Um yeah, I don't know. I just went off on a tangent about homeschooling because that's where my trauma lies right now.
Well, we're not teachers. And bless them, they are awesome. But they struggle too, They had to move to Zoom and trying to teach where kids are trying to be on a computer, and like it was just a different precedent for everybody to set, but holy innovation and holy like there were so many lessons to be taught. Lessons to learn and lessons to be taught about what it means, like what kind of learning. I mean, my kids learned all sorts of things experientially during that time. When the world was hoarding toilet paper and diapers, like Jason went to the store and he was like, well, there are no more diapers at the store. And we looked at Jordan and we were like, guess who's getting potty trained? Like, and then it's like learning to ride a bike. The training wheels came off, and like there were so many things that were non-school related. And then when things opened up again, it was like, all right, like how do we put our kids in the best possible place to catch up on some of these things, like socially, and learning wise, how can we make sure that they're caught up. And so that's what we kind of put our brains behind, is how can we make this the best for them. And kids are so resilient. They were fine with the masks. They still kind of like, they still will wear masks even though it's not mandated here anymore, which is totally fine with me. And we have, yeah. Yeah,
affected by this. And Sarah, I'm so glad you said the thing of like everyone, all these people are like, you're gonna look back that you got these years with her and this time with her in the house. And I was like, did you go through the terrible twos stuck in the house with a child? Because you don't understand. Like, there's no playground, there's no play dates. Like, this is not this like joyous time to be with your 2-year-old. I mean, of course, looking back, I will cherish the fact that I got to spend so much time with her. But whew, terrible twos in quarantine, don't recommend it. So I think, first of all, thank you both. I think we could talk about this forever. Bring everybody that's watching into this conversation, get their input. Everyone's, I think can relate to a lot of the things that you've said. And just, there's so many things, little possible nuggets of advice to give. But if each of you had one piece of advice for other working moms out there, like, what would it be? And Lorrie, you go first.
Well, first, for the people who have experience just being on a team, I would encourage you to look at your village as a team, as that team, because like more than anything, I knew and my partner knew that we had to be a team on this. Like, no matter what we hadn't talked about yet or like how we were going to handle something, like we really had to be a team on that. So it's been a lot of like work on us as a team, being a parent team, so to speak, and with the kind of extended family and extended friend team. Like, I kind of like, for anybody who has that experience, like Sarah and I and whoever has been on a team together and know what that looks like when you guys are all in sync, that's kind of what we want to strive for. And for those people who aren't on a team, I think, well, one, definitely allow yourself a lot of grace, and also go easy on them, because it's hard for them too. And like, when we think about the things in our life that either traumatized us or made us stronger, it sometimes was literally one interaction with an adult that mattered to you in one specific time frame in your life. And any point that you have with them could be that thing, could be that thing that they remember. So if you're thinking about like laying into them for something, and just like be careful what you say, maybe take a deep breath, walk away, remove yourself for a second, and come back and allow them their big feelings, and allow them to talk it through and to process it, and be like, I'm having a hard time too, because it's good for them to understand that we're humans too, and we have big feelings that we sometimes don't know how to deal with either.
I would say my advice and also my biggest lesson would just be around patience. And obviously, it's easy to say have patience with your kids, but I think more so have patience with yourself and what comes up for you and whatever you're feeling, especially being a working mom. Just be patient with yourself. And I feel like the more you find that space within yourself to witness that and take those seconds and be patient with, the irritability, the anger, the exhaustion, whatever comes up, it just ends up creating more space in your life and making more patience, for your interactions with your kids. And my other advice for all moms everywhere is take tons of pictures, because when you become a mom, time suddenly starts going by faster. It's like the weirdest thing. I don't know. It makes sense. It's probably a scientific fact. So I, always have my phone out taking pictures because time goes by so fast.
I mean, it is like the last week of March, folks. Like, come on now. What happened? What's happening here?
A way to end it before I ask you if you have anything you want to share. When I started working with Angel City 2 years ago ish, I looked at my daughter and said, "Hey, do you want to go to a soccer game in 2 years?" And she was like, "Yeah." And guess what? Next week she's going to her first soccer game. So, time really does fly. So just, before we totally close, Lorrie, you are obviously very busy. Just casually dropped, you went to South Africa. So is there anything you want to tell people to follow or plug?
Oh my gosh. Well, one, I love my work. I love being involved in Angel City. I love my volunteer stuff. I'm a sport envoy for the U.S. State Department, and I'm actually, well, for my real work, I'm the chief program director for the Charlize Theron Africa Outreach Project, which is Charlize Theron's foundation. We're a grant-making organization that is that we work with community-based organizations in Southern Africa, and we give them grants, but also offer tons of other support. And these organizations really focus on young people and sexual and reproductive health and the prevention of gender-based violence. So being focused on young people, it's really something really super close to my heart. There's a lot of like equity work that goes on, and there's just a lot of relationship building. And I just, I want to plug the organization because they're awesome, and the work that we support is just spectacular. Local knowledge, local expertise is the way to go if you're supporting any community. Oh, you can actually just type in ctop.org, or you can go to Charlize Africa Outreach.
Yes, I have I don't know what I was going to say. I have a nonprofit called Hood Space, and it is about bringing mental wellness, mental health, yoga meditation to Black and brown girls. Originally in Chicago, now that I'm in Los Angeles, I want to bring it here to Los Angeles. We're going to have our first event here in May for Mental Health and Awareness Month. And yeah, that's about it.
And you post that on your Instagram so people know how to give and what to do?
I post a lot on Instagram. So yeah, go there. Shameless plugs.
There you go. Hey, well, you gave us your time. Thank you both. Thank you so much. If you're watching this, you follow Angel City social channels, so please stay tuned for next month's Birdie's conversation. And thank you both again, and hope everyone enjoyed, because I definitely did.